Let me ask you a sincere question. Do we really know the people we love? Many people think they know everything about their family, until they discover that, behind silences and smiles, there are stories so deep that they can completely change the way we see our own roots. Today's story will show you exactly that. A simple envelope hidden in an old book triggered a sequence of events that no one could have ever predicted. Luca, a young man like so many others, was pulled into an emotional labyrinth that involved not only the memory of his grandfather, but also a secret kept for decades, a secret that spanned generations filled with love, fear, courage, and almost impossible choices. Get ready, because what started as a common farewell at a wake quickly turned into an investigation full of enigmatic clues, hidden safes, secret diaries, an abandoned house, and family revelations that shake any structure. And the most impressive thing? In the end, Luca not only uncovered the truth but also discovered a brother he didn't even know existed, and a legacy of humanity and the power of kindness much greater than he ever imagined. Now, take a deep breath, because this story will touch your heart and everything you believe about family, secrets, and the true value of the decisions we make. The smell of aged wood and old papers permeated the air, while the heavy curtains swayed in the timid breeze that escaped through the crack in the window. Luca, still enveloped in the haze of emotion and pain over his grandfather's recent departure, found a silent refuge in the old office to process everything. Each object there told a story. Each book carried memories of afternoons shared between grandson and grandfather, when the world seemed simpler and love overflowed in the form of stories of heroes, tales of bravery, and legends of magical adventures. It was while leafing through one of these books, its pages already yellowed, that something unusual caught his attention: a folded page, carefully hidden between the chapters. His hand, still trembling, unfolded the paper. The handwriting, firm but full of emotion, unmistakably belonged to his grandfather. And there was the message: "Not everything we leave behind is past. Follow the sound of the song of childhood." That wasn't just a letter. It was a summons. As he read and reread those words, Luca's heart alternated between the sadness of loss and the disturbing curiosity that the message provoked. His grandfather had always been a man of wisdom, one of those who kept secrets not out of selfishness but out of understanding of life, out of a certain respect for the complexity of human stories. The song of childhood echoed in Luca's memory like a soft whisper. It was the same lullaby that his grandfather sang on cold nights, lulling his dreams with tenderness and affection. Now, that simple song seemed to carry a much greater meaning. What did his grandfather want to reveal? What truths lay dormant beneath that poetic clue? Deep down, Luca knew there was something great hidden behind those words. And it took courage to follow that mysterious trail. The young man, who had been accustomed to the predictable routine of life, felt the call of adventure pulsing strongly within his chest. It was as if his grandfather, even after leaving, was still guiding his steps, leading him through an emotional labyrinth filled with fear, insecurity, but also hope. With a mixture of reverence and determination, Luca promised himself that he would follow every clue left, no matter how challenging the journey might be. After all, as his grandfather had taught him so many times, some truths are only revealed to those who have the courage to seek them with an open heart and a humble spirit. And little did he know that that first step would lead him to delve into a family legacy that surpassed decades of silences, secrets, and redemptions kept in time. The following hours were filled with a dense but restless silence. Luca, driven by a mixture of anxiety and inspiration, mentally searched through every fragment of memory with his grandfather. That lullaby was not just a melody. It carried a hidden meaning. He remembered his grandfather humming softly while telling him little stories about secrets saved for the right moment. It was not difficult to imagine that the old man, always wrapped in wisdom and kindness, could have hidden something to be discovered only when Luca was ready to understand. In every corner of the old house, every bookcase, every drawer, there seemed to be the possibility of a new revelation, as if his grandfather were still there, whispering in his ears, guiding him with the power of kindness even after his departure. It was then that, as he carefully observed the heavy oak bookcase, the same one where his grandfather kept his most precious works, Luca noticed something subtle. Discreet marks on the wood revealed that the piece of furniture had been moved countless times over the years. With some effort and perseverance, he pushed the bookcase a few centimeters, and there, hidden in the stone wall, a small built-in compartment appeared. An old safe, its metal already rusted by time but still solid, guardian of a secret that had been sealed for a long time. Luca's heart raced. It was as if the adventure was gaining new layers, transforming that personal investigation into a true journey of reconciliation with the past. The safe, however, required a password, and, as in an ingenious work of literature, the answer seemed to lie in the lyrics of that old lullaby. The challenge now required not only courage, but also a deep emotional understanding of the connection that united grandson and grandfather. The song always began with the same sweet words, repeated night after night, "Little lighthouse in the darkness." With his heart racing and a nervous smile on his face, Luca typed the first letters of the song as the password. A metallic snap echoed, followed by a soft click. The safe opened. It was like crossing an invisible boundary between mystery and truth. Within lay not just objects, but fragments of his grandfather's soul, and with them, the beginning of even deeper revelations that would unearth layers of fear, courage, love, and choices that would forever change his understanding of his own family history. The inside of the safe seemed to contain the weight of the years, wrapped in an almost sacred silence. There lay a diary with an aged leather cover, its yellowed pages full of marks of time, as if each page were a testimony to stories never told. Upon opening the notebook, Luca felt the strong smell of old paper mixed with accumulated dust. The first lines already made it clear. These were not simple memories. They were confessions full of love, fear, courage, and brutal honesty. His grandfather described, with moving sincerity, entire chapters of an unknown youth, immersed in moral dilemmas, state secrets, and choices that would have consequences for decades. There was a parallel life that no one in the family had ever suspected. As he read on, Luca plunged into a true emotional labyrinth. His grandfather's words revealed a forbidden friendship, forged during the dark years of the dictatorship, when any act of compassion could mean prison or worse. There was a promise described repeatedly, made to someone named Joanna, whose story still remained in the shadows. The pages detailed nights of escape, improvised hiding places, secret codes, and clandestine meetings, all guided by a strong sense of justice, respect, and altruism. The grandfather, who had always seemed like a passionate storyteller, now revealed himself as someone who had lived a real adventure, where each decision involved risking his life and profound sacrifices. Luca felt his heart heavy, and at the same time flooded with admiration. After all, he was not only discovering facts, he was reconstructing the very identity of the family. Amidst the pages, he found torn photos, some encrypted letters, and, most intriguingly, a small golden key with the number 42 precisely engraved on it. The object shone in the dim light, carrying with it the mystery that seemed to beg to be unraveled. Luca realized that this symbol was more than a simple artifact. It was the silent invitation to continue his grandfather's journey. As someone guided by an invisible force, he knew he couldn't stop there. The search was not just for historical truth, but for family reconciliation, for forgiveness of absences, for the restoration of an almost lost lineage. And with this certainty in his chest, even without knowing what awaited him, Luca moved on to the next piece of this complex puzzle. With the diary in hand and the small golden key in his pocket, Luca felt the adventure take on even more intense contours. The pages of the notebook repeatedly mentioned a stone house located in a remote mountain range, a place that, according to his grandfather, held important secrets and memories buried by time. Driven by a mixture of courage, curiosity, and a deep sense of duty, Luca prepared his trip. The winding road seemed to test his perseverance with each narrow curve and stretch of dirt road. As the cold wind cut his face and the sound of the tires echoed in the silent immensity of the mountains, his heart beat faster, lulled by thoughts of everything he had already discovered and about what could still come to light. Finally, after hours of solitary travel, the house appeared before his eyes. It was a large stone mansion, covered in thick moss and surrounded by ancient trees, as if nature itself had decided to hide that place from the world. The broken windows, the partially collapsed roof, and the rusty doors told a story of abandonment, but not complete. Luca soon noticed small signs of recent presence, soft footprints in the dust, relatively clean utensils, some candles still with traces of fresh wax. Who was taking care of this place? Was it someone from the old protection network, mentioned by his grandfather? Or were there other, even more delicate secrets waiting for him there? Exploring each room cautiously, Luca found a trap door hidden under the floor of the old living room. The wood creaked beneath his feet as he, with trembling hands, fitted the small golden key into the lock of the built-in box. A dry click confirmed that he had found the next fragment of this intricate journey. Inside the box, carefully preserved, lay a hand-drawn map, and next to it a name written in firm handwriting, Joanna Alicia. The name echoed in his mind with the force of thunder. It was the same one that had appeared in the diary, the same one that seemed to gravitate at the center of this entire plot. With the map in hand and new questions bubbling in his chest, Luca knew he was only beginning to understand the depth of his grandfather's hidden legacy, and that, soon, each new discovery would bring him closer to a truth that would forever change his worldview. With the name Joanna Alicia engraved in his mind, and the map carefully folded in his pocket, Luca embarked on a new phase of his search, now not only physical but also emotional. Upon returning to the city, he searched for public records, visited old archives and questioned older people, hoping to find any clues about that mysterious woman. However, at first, everything seemed shrouded in silence. Most people simply did not know who she was. But with each denial, his determination only grew, driven by perseverance and the sense of responsibility inherited from his own grandfather. It was as if, by following these clues, he was not only unraveling the family's past, but also rescuing an important piece of history that time had almost erased. After weeks of investigation, and with the help of a notary public employee who was moved by the story, someone driven by kindness and the desire to help, Luca finally found a record. Joanna Alicia had been a political activist during the years of repression and had mysteriously disappeared in the 1970s. However, the most surprising thing was not discovering her involvement in activism, but rather the unusual note next to her name. Protected. That word carried enormous weight. She was not listed as dead, nor as permanently missing. This indicated that someone had hidden her, someone had saved her, and the chances that her grandfather himself had been part of a secret protection network were becoming increasingly greater. A dangerous altruism, practiced by people of extreme courage, who risked their lives to save others in times of brutality. Now, more than ever, Luca realized the magnitude of the legacy his grandfather had left. It was not just a family story, but a network of understanding, empathy, and sacrifice that involved dozens, perhaps hundreds of anonymous people, all united by the courage to protect lives amidst political chaos. Joanna's name was not just a clue. It was the gravitational center of a heroic past, but one fraught with risk and profound consequences. And as he connected the pieces, Luca felt not only curiosity grow within him, but also a kind of awe, as if he were standing on sacred ground. Little did he know, however, that the next step in his investigation would bring him face to face with a revelation that would shake his own lineage to its very core. Back at his grandmother's house, Luca began to revisit every corner with new eyes. Now each object, each forgotten box, potentially carried a fragment of his grandfather's hidden history. In an old tool cabinet, among rusty keys and old parts, he found a wooden box, covered in dust and protected by a simple worn padlock. With the same golden key he had used before, the padlock gave way easily, revealing the contents that would radically change everything Luca knew about his own family. Inside the box lay an old photo album, its pages fragile and yellowed with time. As he slowly flipped through each page, he saw family images from his childhood, pictures of parties, reunions, and trips. But then, among so many memories, a single photo froze his heart. There was his grandfather smiling, hugging a young, serene woman whom he recognized instantly, Joanna Elysia. Beside them, a baby of a few months lay in her arms, wrapped in blankets. On the back of the photo, a handwritten inscription, "Our greatest treasure." The words struck Luca like a bolt of lightning. Who was that child? Could it be that his grandfather had fathered a child out of wedlock, a brother or uncle previously unknown to the family? The photograph was not just proof of a secret romance. It was the seed of an entire lineage that had remained in the shadows for decades, shrouded in fear, shame, love, and difficult decisions, guided by the need to protect those they loved. The revelation brought Luca an intense mix of emotions. The pain of family betrayal mixed with the understanding of the dark context in which everything had occurred. He understood with wisdom and humanity that his grandfather's choices had not been born of cowardice, but rather of the desperate need to preserve lives in cruel times. What had previously seemed to be a simple secret love affair now revealed itself to be part of a much larger web of courage and altruism. Each new discovery increased the weight of his mission. It was no longer just about clarifying the past, but about honoring that legacy, gathering the scattered pieces and healing old wounds with the power of kindness and forgiveness. And it was with this determination that he set out in search of the one who until then was an unknown relative, but was about to change everything. The clues fit together like pieces of a complex puzzle, and Luca, now driven not only by curiosity but by a deep sense of reconciliation, followed the tracks of that mysterious child. With the help of civil records, old baptisms, and some information, crossed in public archives, he located a name, Raphael, a man of simple life living in a neighboring city, far from the urban hustle and bustle and oblivious to the emotional turmoil that was unfolding in parallel. Fate, with its usual irony, guided him to a modest mechanics workshop where Raphael had worked for years. As soon as Luca arrived, their eyes met, and a silence full of meaning took over the room. There was something there that went beyond reason, the invisible bond of blood. The conversation began cautiously, but quickly delved into the essence of that emotional adventure. Luca recounted each step of his search, the hidden letter, the safe behind the bookshelf, the diary, the photos, and finally the discovery of his possible lost brother. Raphael, surprised and visibly shaken, revealed that he had been raised by a woman named Aunt Joanna, but had never known the identity of his father. His words carried the sincerity of someone who had searched for answers all his life, but always found closed doors. It was as if, at that moment, two lonely paths had finally converged, united by love, understanding, and a past carefully protected. For decades, the physical resemblance between them, the firm gaze, the shy smile, the way they walked, was impossible to ignore. With the consent of both, a DNA test was performed. The result left no room for doubt. They were blood brothers. What began as a lonely journey for Luca now became a story of a family rescued from the shadows, a reunion marked by the courage to face the unknown and the strength of forgiveness. As they embraced for the first time, they felt the weight of loneliness dissipate, replaced by pure affection and immense gratitude for the second chance life had offered them. But even though the main pieces were falling into place, one last powerful revelation still awaited Luca, something written, deep within the diary, that would give complete meaning to all the sacrifices and choices his grandfather had made. last time. As if something inside him whispered that there was still more to be discovered, he returned to his old office, now filled with new memories and meanings. Handling the old notebook with its worn cover again, he noticed something that had gone unnoticed before. The bottom of the back cover was slightly loose, creating a small hidden compartment. With trembling hands, he carefully pulled the edge and found a folded sheet with his grandfather's unmistakable handwriting, his last words, kept there like a silent testament. The text, full of emotion, finally revealed what until then had remained only between the lines. His grandfather confessed the true and deep love he had experienced with Joanna, and how, in a period marked by fear and repression, they had had to make impossible decisions. The arrival of Raphael, the fruit of this forbidden love, brought them indescribable happiness, but also a constant risk to their lives. Therefore, to ensure the safety of both, he agreed to step away and keep the secret until the end of his life. The truth always finds its way. Now it is yours, his grandfather concluded with moving honesty, making it clear that he trusted Luca to rescue what time and silence had almost buried. Luca read those words in tears. He felt an overwhelming mix of compassion, hope, forgiveness, and gratitude. His grandfather had not been a man who ran away from his responsibilities. On the contrary, he was someone who, with extreme wisdom, sought to protect those he loved in a cruel time. The revelation definitively changed Luca's journey, no longer just as a curious grandson, but as an heir to a story of courage, resilience, and humanity. Now, with all the fragments gathered together, a new mission emerged, to give voice to the story that had remained hidden for so long, not only to honor the grandfather, but so that others would understand the true power of kindness, even when faced with the most difficult choices. Could no longer remain just within the family. There was something greater there, a testimony of humanity, courage, and altruism that needed to reach other people, not only as a personal memory but as an inspiration. Thus was born the idea of transforming that entire story, full of love, understanding, and difficult choices, into a book. In the silence of the early mornings, while revisiting the diaries, photos, and letters Luca wrote with his heart, each chapter was an invitation to reflect on how fear can force us to make painful decisions, but also on how the strength of forgiveness and the power of kindness can span generations. When finally published, the book quickly gained notoriety, not only because of the dramatic power of the story itself, but because deep down it touched on wounds and truths that many Brazilian families carry to this day, the result of dark times of political repression. Academics, journalists, and ordinary readers were moved by the story of someone who, even in the face of extreme danger, chose to protect lives rather than sacrifice his humanity. The book became a historical reference, and more than that, an emotional bridge between generations. Young people, previously distant from these stories, now understood the weight of the choices their grandparents and great-grandparents had to make in the name of survival and dignity. Luca, in turn, not only found his purpose, but also transformed himself profoundly in the process. Insecurity and doubt gave way to confidence and healthy pride in carrying a surname now full of meaning. He realized that, amid life's uncertainties, truth does not die. It just waits for the right moment and the right people to emerge. And when guided by empathy, respect, and wisdom, this truth does not destroy but heals. However, the true transformation was still underway. The book was just the beginning of an even larger movement, which would culminate in the reconstruction, not only of the family history, but of the very house where it all began, a physical symbol of the rebirth of a legacy. Breathes new life. Restored with care and affection, it has become a center of family and historical memory, also open to visitors and researchers. On the walls, old photos share space with letters, documents, and objects rescued throughout Luca's journey. Each item now no longer carries the weight of secrecy, but the brightness of restored truth. For Luca, each visit is not just a reminder of the past. It is a continuous reunion with the lessons of wisdom, compassion and courage that his grandfather, even after death, continues to teach. The young man, once shy and insecure, found a greater purpose in his own story. Now, he gives lectures, leads discussion groups, and follows educational projects that discuss topics such as justice, historical memory, and family reconciliation. Whenever he tells the story of his grandfather, people are moved, not only by the gravity of the facts, but by the human depth that overflows in every detail. He talks about the impossible choices that require honesty above all else, about fear that when faced with resilience and faith turns into learning, and about the transformative power of forgiveness, capable of healing even the oldest wounds. The grandfather, who once seemed to be just a storyteller, revealed himself to be, in fact, a true master of life. His last lesson, left discreetly through a simple hidden letter, transformed his grandson into the guardian of a legacy that goes far beyond blood ties, a legacy of humanity, hope, and the eternal power of kindness. And so every time Luca crosses the gates of that house, he does not just remember the past, he renews with every step the silent commitment that his grandfather left him, to never allow truth and love to be lost in oblivion. Now tell me, how many stories like this could be hidden within your own family, just waiting for courage and curiosity to come to light? How many times do we run away from difficult conversations, from old silences, from saved letters, believing that the past should remain buried? When, in fact, it is there that the power of our reconciliation, our identity and true wisdom resides? Luca's journey shows what few have the courage to face. The past does not hold us back. It sets us free as long as we are honest enough to face it. Love, compassion, forgiveness, respect, and hope are not just pretty words, they are the true foundations that transform entire lives. And the most incredible thing? Sometimes it all starts with a small detail, a letter, a song, a photograph forgotten at the bottom of a drawer. Now I ask you with all sincerity, what untold stories exist in your own life? What have you been putting off discovering? What needs to be healed, faced, and revealed so that you can finally write your next chapter with courage and lightness? If this story touched you in any way, and I'm sure it did, then I invite you to continue this journey with me. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and come with me to discover more incredible, profound, and transformative stories like this one, because in the end, that's what makes us human.